7 years after we were legally married, my husband, Julian, and I were finally having the romantic wedding we never got to have. That day, I walked toward him in a gown of my own design, my eyes full of hope, but before I could speak the vows I had so carefully prepared, the ceremony was shattered by an incident. To the astonishment of our guests, Julian sprinted past me, his face a mask of terror, towards the woman who had just collapsed, the same woman who had fainted at my wedding once before. "Call an ambulance," he screamed, his eyes red with panic. He left the chapel without a single glance back. After the bells had tolled 7 times, I calmly tore off my veil. I turned to the remaining guests with a bright, steady smile. "As you can all see," I announced, "today is not a wedding. It is the ceremony of my divorce from Julian Croft. Please, enjoy the food and drinks. Don't let your journey here be for nothing." Julian didn't even call to explain. The next day, I saw his post on social media, uploaded at 3 a.m. It was a picture of 2 hands clasped together. The caption read, "My life has been a relentless march forward, a soldier who never stops, yet twice I have paused for you." I didn't hesitate for a second. I liked it and left a comment, "All the best." The moment I put down my phone, it rang. The screen read, "Husband." I thought he'd seen my comment and was calling to explain himself, but when I answered, a delicate, feminine voice came through the line, punctuated by a fragile cough. "Aria, darling, cough, cough, it's me, Serena." The last flicker of hope inside me died. I suppressed a wave of nausea and replied coldly, "What is it?" My unusual lack of outrage, the fact that I didn't demand to know why she was answering my husband's phone, seemed to throw her off. She paused for a few seconds before continuing. "Julian went to get some hot water to give me a sponge bath. He was in such a hurry he forgot his phone. So careless of him." She chirped, "Aria, about yesterday, I never thought my condition would flare up. I'm so sorry for interrupting your and Julian's wedding. Please don't be angry with him, will you?" After her breathless performance, I heard Julian's concerned voice in the background. "Serena, why are you out of bed? Lie down. I'll explain things to her." Cough, cough, "You're always like this," she cooed. "The slightest thing happens to me and you look like you're about to cry." "It's not that serious." I was long accustomed to Serena's damsel in distress act and had no interest in the rest of their play, but they seemed determined to drag me into their romantic drama, to use me as the backdrop for their love story. The sickeningly sweet words kept coming. "I will never let anything happen to you," Julian said, his voice thick with a tenderness that was once reserved for me. "I know," she purred, "you're the best to me. Now, be a good boy and go finish the wedding. Aria has been waiting 7 years for this. I promise I'll control myself this time. I won't even go to the venue." "Okay." Her voice broke with a sob at the end. Julian's heart melted. "Shoo, it's okay," he soothed. "The wedding is off. We've been husband and wife for years. We don't need these hollow, meaningless things." I was about to say something, but my hand trembled, and the phone nearly slipped from my grasp. Julian, he had used that gentle, soothing voice to drive a knife straight through my heart. My stomach churned violently. I fought down the urge to be sick and forced a cold laugh. "Since you two have so much to say to each other, I won't interrupt." "Julian, I'm not sure where you've been staying when you're not at home, so I've sent the divorce papers to Serena's address. Don't forget to sign for them." Before I could hang up, he exploded, "Aria, do you get some kind of sick pleasure from threatening divorce like a bitter shrew every single day?" He roared. "It was an emergency yesterday. What was I supposed to do? Stand by and watch Serena die?" A grim smile touched my lips, but I said nothing. In the past, he'd always used the silent treatment to handle the tension. Between the 3 of us, I would be the one to scream and cry, while he would calmly smoke one cigarette after another. Today's outburst felt like the release of years of pent-up frustration. I was the one left at the altar, but he was the one who was angry, and for the first time, he used a word I had never heard from him before, a bitter shrew. He didn't know. Only an unhappy marriage can turn a woman into a shrew. I had known him for 10 years, been married to him for 7. I was with him when he had nothing, all the way until his company went public. Through all the storms we'd weathered, I, the unbreakable rose, had long since faded, and now, in the face of those 2 words, all my sacrifices were rendered worthless. "Julian, if you won't sign the papers, we'll settle this in court." I was tired. This time, no matter how much it hurt, I was cutting my losses. He must have heard the exhaustion in my voice, because his tone softened slightly. "All you wanted was a wedding, right? We have our whole lives. We can do it any other day. Serena had a heart attack yesterday. If I hadn't gotten her to the hospital in time, the consequences would have been unimaginable. And your social media post, I couldn't help but laugh. Who did you pause for, Julian? That was just a sentimental thought. Can you stop making a big deal out of everything? And just like that, it was my fault again, as if I were overreacting. How many of his vaguely sentimental posts had I seen over the years? I could pretend not to understand them because, for the most part, he remembered he was a married man and maintained a degree of restraint, but that didn't give him the right to humiliate me at my own wedding, twice, in the exact same way. Serena was a younger student from Julian's university. 7 years ago, at our first, simpler wedding, she had pulled the same stunt. Just as the groom was about to say I do, she, a guest, burst into tears, disrupting the ceremony before collapsing. Julian had rushed her to the hospital and stayed by her side for 48 hours. The wedding was abandoned. That day, his social media post read, "Glad you're safe," followed by tying the knot. I was too naive back then to understand the implication. We decided against rescheduling to spare our relatives another trip. Seeing my disappointment, Julian had comforted me. "Don't be sad, my love, when we're rich, we'll have a wedding every year." I had laughed. Now, 7 years later, on the cusp of turning 30, I had wanted to finally resolve that old regret, to have a memory to mark our youth, but once again, he had paused for her. On the phone, Serena's tear-choked voice returned. "Aria, I've been frail since I was a child. I really didn't mean to faint at your wedding." Cough, cough. The phone was suddenly snatched away. "That's enough, Aria." Julian's voice was a low growl. "You have the title of Mrs. Croft. What more could you possibly want? Serena is already suffering enough. Why are you tormenting a sick person?" A cold smirk played on my lips. "Her suffering has nothing to do with me. It's because you keep stringing her along, while you occupy the position of my husband, unable to give her the title she wants." A stunned silence came from the other end. They didn't realize that once Mrs. Croft decided she no longer needed to be dignified, everything was fair game, and Serena, the proud little princess, would never want to be labeled the other woman. Sure enough, a moment later, I heard soft sobs. Julian, forgetting me completely, began to soothe her. "Serena, don't get worked up. I'll make her apologize to you." Then, his voice turned demanding and cold as he spoke to me. "Aria, Serena is emotionally unstable right now. I want you at the hospital in the next 30 minutes. Otherwise, the second I receive those divorce papers, I'll sign them, and then we'll see how your childish little game of reverse psychology plays out." I hung up before he could finish, even knowing there was no turning back. The blatant favoritism in his voice still felt like a knife twisting in my gut. 10 years of misplaced devotion. The 7-year itch. I hadn't managed to escape a single cliché. I met Julian at a university mixer. He was tall, bright, and handsome, exactly my type. From that moment on, I was completely smitten. I gave up a prestigious exchange student scholarship just to stay in the country and pursue him. I would travel across the city to his university just to orchestrate chance encounters. On the 9th try, he was finally moved and grudgingly agreed to give us a shot. Even our marriage was my idea, but I never felt our relationship was cheapened because I was the one who pursued him. He had been a good boyfriend, and for a time, a devoted husband. There was just that one wavering part of his heart. I had thought I was strong enough to win it over completely. After we married, we fought and scraped our way to success, building our company from the ground up. As he became more successful, more brilliant women entered his orbit. I never saw them as a threat. When he went out for business dinners, facing all sorts of temptations, I was never worried, until Serena returned to the country. That's when my confidence began to crumble. I went from throwing tantrums to being a silent observer. I constantly tried to reason with myself. As long as he hasn't crossed the line, it's all just in his head. But I kept lowering my standards, and his heart kept shrinking. It became so small that it could only hold things related to Serena. If Serena was unhappy, he'd cancel an international conference to comfort her. If Serena was moving, he, the CEO of a major company, would personally help with the boxes. If Serena had a medical episode, he would be on call 24/7. His excuse was always the same. Serena was all alone in the city, and as her senior from university, it was his duty to look after her. If I protested, I was being unreasonable and petty. He forgot that I was the wife he was supposed to cherish. He forgot that we were struggling to conceive, that we needed to work together to start a family. During that time, I was the only one holding on to his empty promises, enduring round after round of painful injections by myself. And now, fate had played a cruel joke on me. I had finally conceived. but I couldn't keep it. After packing my bags, I booked a flight out of the country for that same day. 10 years ago, my parents and brother had moved abroad for business. I was supposed to join them as an exchange student, but I had a massive falling out with my family over Julian. They refused to even attend my wedding. The only family member at our first wedding was my grandmother. Now, 7 years later, my grandmother was gone. I was glad she wasn't here to see the groom leave his bride for another woman a second time. Julian never knew that starting a business from scratch wasn't so easy. He never knew that the wedding gift my grandmother gave me was actually, from my mother, a multi-million-dollar apartment in the city center. I had foolishly thought that if Julian knew I'd fought with my wealthy family for him, he would feel guilty, so I continued to play the part of a poor, unloved girl from the countryside. I secretly sold the property. With the money, I paid off his family's debts so he could focus on his work. I used the rest to cover his business losses, giving him the capital for countless mistakes and second chances. Finally, he made it, and I happily endured it all, sacrificing my youth. Vanity, it truly is a sickness. If I didn't care about myself, why would anyone else? I stood up numbly, ready for the airport. As I opened the bedroom door, I saw Julian sprawled on the sofa, looking exhausted. His eyes fell on the suitcase beside me, and he rubbed his temples in frustration. What is this? Another one of your running away from home dramas, he sighed. Why didn't you answer my calls? I glanced at my watch and replied calmly. What did you need? My polite, formal tone caught him off guard. He stared at me for a moment. Arya, what in the world are you trying to do? Can't you just say it? He demanded. I left because of an emergency. Why would you tell our relatives it was a divorce ceremony? This is suffocating. I've explained it to you 1,000 times. Serena and I are just like siblings. When my business was failing, she gave me endless comfort and encouragement. That's what gave me the strength to carry on. Now that I'm successful, what's wrong with taking care of her? Why do you insist on twisting things and making yourself miserable? Carry on. So all it took was comfort and encouragement. My money, it seems, was completely wasted. I listened quietly until he was finished, then nodded. I know, you know, and you still provoked Serena. She's been crying her eyes out, completely depressed because of what you said. His tone shifted to a command. You need to be the one to fix this. Go to the hospital right now and apologize to her, or this isn't over. He was already used to pulling rank with me, the company CEO at home. My eyes stung, and I stood frozen for a long time. He stood up and walked over to me. I finally looked up at him. His tall, strong frame, which had once been my shelter from the storm, no longer protected me. He urged impatiently, go to the hospital first. Serena needs to rest in an hour. I'll take a quick shower and then head over to stay with her tonight. There's a dessert shop across the street. Get her a matcha lava cake. It always cheers her up, and then she won't hold a grudge against you. He finished, and I, not wanting to argue, just lowered my head and grunted in agreement. The despair in my heart was too heavy for words. After all these years together, he could remember another woman's favorite food, but drew a complete blank when it came to me. The cheesecake I loved, he had no memory of it. The floral dress I wore so often, he didn't even remember it was the first gift he ever gave me. The countless design sketches I showed him, when the finished wedding dress was made, he just told me I should learn from the professionals. When I loved him, I could find endless excuses. He was just too busy, too focused on the big picture to have time for the little things. But now, I could no longer convince myself. It wasn't that he couldn't spare the attention, it was that I wasn't worth his attention. Julian, feeling that he had never been unfaithful, never saw a reason to be humble with me. This time, seeing my unusual calm, his tone softened. Leaving yesterday was my fault. I'll explain everything to our friends and family. Since you want a wedding so badly, I'll cooperate. I wanted it. He'd cooperate. The old me would have argued, you owe me this, or this was the wedding of the century you promised me. But now, I couldn't be bothered. I walked past him toward the door. Arya, your problem is you have too much time on your hands as a housewife. You create your own drama. He called after me. I'm warning you. Fix your attitude. It's better for both of us. You'd better not pull any more stunts. Seeing I wasn't responding, Julian finally dropped his calm facade, hurling empty threats at my back. I felt nothing. My only thought was to get this last thing over with before leaving the country. I went to the same hospital as Serena. I had an appointment for an abortion, 4 years, to accommodate his feelings. I was the one who took birth control, which had damaged my health. When we were finally ready for a child, we discovered that Julian had fertility issues. I had briefly considered leaving with this child. I could afford to raise it alone. But now, the thought that a part of him would forever be a part of me, connected by blood, was enough to make me sick. As I walked into the hospital, my heart was like iron. But after the procedure, when the doctor confirmed that the tiny life was gone, tears streamed down my face. I was discharged after 2 hours of observation. On the hospital path, I saw Serena, clinging to Julian's arm and talking animatedly. Julian's back was to me. When our eyes met, Serena, far from being ashamed, deliberately pressed herself closer to him, her chest brushing against his arm. "Julian, thank you for always being with me," she said, her voice loud enough for me to hear clearly. If the old me had seen this, I would have stormed over and slapped her. But now, I didn't have the strength. It was the most direct path out of the hospital. I didn't bother taking a detour. I walked past them with a calm expression, as if they were strangers. I caught a glimpse of Julian freezing, about to follow me, but Serena held him back. "Arya, is that you?" He recognized me. I ignored him and kept walking. Enraged, he caught up and grabbed my arm. When his eyes landed on my pale face, the accusation on his lips softened. "Did you buy the things I told you to buy for Serena? I already told you how to apologize. Why can't you just make my life easier? You told me to come to the hospital," I said, a faint smile on my lips. "So here I am. And from the looks of it, your precious Serena is so happy. She's hardly at death's door. Instead of a matcha cake, why don't you just give her yourself? You're being completely irrational," he roared, shoving me hard. I stumbled backward, my hands instinctively hitting the rough pavement, scraping the skin. The air went still for a few seconds. I slowly got to my feet and calmly brushed the dust off my clothes. "I can't win a fight against you. A wise person knows when to retreat. Julian, remember to sign the divorce papers." My words seemed to ignite a fire in him. "You jealous shrew. Look at yourself. What have you become?" I finally broke. "What have I become?" I screamed. "Julian, I was not born to be a resentful woman who stays home to serve you. Every single award-winning design on your company's wall of honor came from my hand. I was willing to stand in your shadow, but that didn't give you the right to look down on me. No one enjoys doing laundry and cooking only to be told they create no value. No one enjoys fighting with you over that sweet little snake. That kind of life can go to hell." My voice rose to a crescendo, then fell silent, like a roller coaster, thrilling and terrifying. And when it stopped, there was only a vast emptiness. Julian was silent. A flash of guilt crossed his eyes, but it was quickly replaced by his usual coldness. "If you had been more understanding, we wouldn't be here today," I scoffed. Slap. I hit him with all my strength. The force of it sent a jolt of pain through the fresh wound on my hand. Every time he'd given me the silent treatment, wasn't I always the one to break the silence? Had it become so normal that he thought he was the one who made the rules? As the two of them stared at me with gritted teeth, I turned and walked away. I planned to rest at home for a couple of days before flying out. The moment I lay down, my best friend, Lucy, called. "Are you okay? You weren't answering your phone, and you weren't at home." Her flight had been grounded due to bad weather, so she'd missed my wedding. After I explained everything, her voice choked with emotion. "Those two deserve each other. I hope they're locked together forever and never get to hurt anyone else. How dare they bully my Arya?" "Lucy," I said after a moment, "that villa you've been holding for me, you can go ahead and sell it. I don't think I'll be living in the country anymore." Lucy and I were childhood friends. Before she took over her family's business, she'd been cut off financially during a succession battle. I had given her a portion of the money from my apartment sale to help her start her own company. It wasn't an investment, but after she succeeded, she bought me a riverside villa as a gift, holding it in her name. Her reason was simple. She didn't want Julian to get half of it in a divorce. I had laughed at her for being overly cautious. I never imagined that just 3 years later, we'd be at the point of dividing assets. "If you're leaving the country, we'll sell it," Lucy said. "Arya, I promise I will find you the best divorce lawyer." I trusted her completely, but when it rains, it pours. The next day, Lucy called from the villa. She told me someone was already living there. I thought she must have gone to the wrong place. Then she sent me a video call. The address was correct. The surroundings were familiar. "Arya, be honest with me," she said grimly. "I won't be mad. Did you ever tell that scumbag about this villa?" "Never," I said with certainty. I knew she'd bought it with the intention of protecting it from Julian, so of course I would never have told him. But in her video, the once empty house was fully furnished and decorated, filled with the signs of life. Who else but my husband could so brazenly move into my house? The locks were changed, Lucy said. I had to have someone break it open. It looks like they just moved in. No one's home right now. Do you want to come see? Though I was exhausted, I had to know what was happening. I took a cab over. When I walked in, the first person I saw was Serena. Arya, did you have someone break down my door? She demanded, furious. My first thought was of Lucy. Where's Lucy? You mean the trespasser. I had her tied up and sent to the police station. So, you're the mastermind, are you? I tried to call Lucy, but Serena snatched my phone, threw it on the ground, and stomped on it. Arya, you old hag, who do you think you are? She sneered. If you don't apologize to me today, I guarantee you won't see Julian for the next 10 days. I frowned, trying to make sense of the situation. Serena had illegally occupied my property, yet she had sent Lucy, the legal owner, to the police. This was insane. I knew Julian had been paying for her to live in a luxury apartment near his company. I had discovered it recently while reviewing our finances, and had already listed the amount to be reclaimed in the divorce agreement, but I never imagined she would be here. Lucy said they had just moved in, which meant Julian had been planning to give her a home for some time. Was he really this determined to humiliate me? A wave of dizziness washed over me. Who told you could live here? I asked, cutting to the chase. This is my home. What's the problem? Your home. Didn't you come back to the country because your family couldn't afford to support you abroad? I haven't seen you work a day in your life. How could you afford a villa in this location? There was no point in pretending anymore. She assumed I was about to threaten her with marital property laws, and smugly retorted, as Mrs. Croft, you should be more generous. Julian wouldn't be happy with this lack of class. He was reluctant to leave my side today. It was I who graciously convinced him to go back and spend time with you. See, if you were a little more like me, you wouldn't have been left at the altar twice. He just wanted me to live somewhere comfortable and respectable. Can't you just turn a blind eye? Or do you want to lose both the man and the money? This villa was far nicer than the house Julian and I lived in. Of course she felt respectable, confident in Julian's affection. She was staking her claim. Lose the man and the money? Not a chance. This is not your house, I said calmly. Please move out immediately. Serena burst out laughing. Arya, you really are stubborn. Don't give me that marital property nonsense. If Julian arranged for me to live here, then this villa has nothing to do with you. I curled my lip. Call Julian. Tell him to get over here. Just then, her phone rang. She brandished it in front of me triumphantly. No need to call him. Between us, he's always the one who calls me. I ignored her and bent down to pick up my shattered phone. Lucy had already sent a message saying she was safe and on her way with backup. I replied with a single word, good. As I closed the chat, my finger accidentally tapped on my pinned contact. Julian. The chat history opened. I scrolled up. It was almost entirely long paragraphs from me. His replies were always short, cold, a few words at most. I couldn't help but laugh. It was pathetic how Serena's little boast had managed to get under my skin. A short while later, Julian rushed in. He must have heard Serena's panicked call. Julian, someone broke into our home. I'm so scared, and floored it. He had arrived faster than Lucy, who was much closer. I remembered the time I'd broken my leg at home. He had just sent his assistant to take me to the hospital. His precious time, it seemed, was only for the people he truly cared about. When you're at your wit's end, sometimes all you can do is laugh. Serena, you just got out of the hospital. Go upstairs and rest. I'll handle this, he said, not even seeing me on the sofa. He wrapped an arm around her, guiding her up the stairs with a familiarity that spoke of frequent visits. It was absurd. I was getting a divorce and had sent the papers to the wrong address. Serena hadn't even gone up before Julian was looking for the security cameras, which Lucy had likely already destroyed. Who would be so bold? He muttered impatiently. Before I could speak, Serena put on her most fragile act. Julian, I came home and found Arya here. She had people break down our door. He heard my name and finally noticed me. His eyes first showed shock, then contempt. Arya, what is the meaning of this? What do you think? I shot back. He frowned, struggling for words. Serena quickly grabbed his arm. Arya, please don't be angry with Julian. If you're unhappy, I'll move out. Cough, cough. The arrogant woman from moments ago now looked like she could cough up blood at any second. Julian's heart ached for her. He finally laid his cards on the table. I was the one who renovated this house and let Serena move in. If you have a problem, take it up with me. I stared at him, speechless. Was he serious? Lucy had paid for this house. It was a gift to me, but it had never been legally transferred. How could he be so brazen? Arya, don't think I don't know this house is yours. He sneered. You had Lucy hold it for you. You were hiding it from me, weren't you? Since this is marital property, half of it is mine, half. If I hadn't accepted Lucy's gift, this house would have nothing to do with me. I had no idea where he got this information, or if he'd simply lost his mind. Seeing my silence, his face darkened. Get out of here. We'll talk about this at home. Just as he spoke, my phone rang. I answered and said, "We're inside, come on in." Julian paused. "Arya, what are you planning now?" I said nothing. Less than 10 seconds later, a dozen large men stormed in. Lucy followed, her face black with fury. "Smash it," she ordered. In the chaos, Julian instinctively shielded Serena. "Arya, what are you doing?" he yelled at me. Lucy walked over and threw the red property deed booklet at his chest. "Julian, are you insane? Take this homewrecker and get out of my house." Serena's face went pale. She had assumed Julian had taken care of everything. She never expected to see a property deed with Lucy Zhao's name written on it. Julian grabbed my arm. "Arya, don't think I don't know. You invested in Lucy's company. This house is your dividend. It's our marital property. Did you think I wouldn't find out?" A chill went down my spine. Lucy had already told me. Julian likely found out from her disgruntled former assistant, but it didn't matter. I ignored him and turned to Lucy's lawyer. "Counselor, we have a legal illiterate here. He's all yours." Julian's face turned ugly. "Arya, don't push it. There are no other riverside villas available in the city. The doctor said this environment is good for Serena's recovery. Can't you be less petty?" Serena, her eyes red, clutched his sleeve. "Julian, it's all my fault. My body is so weak. I've caused a fight between you and Arya. This has nothing to do with you," he soothed. "Arya secretly bought property behind my back. I was going to let it go, but if she wants to play dirty, I don't have to be nice anymore. You stay here. I'll handle the rest." Before he could finish his grand declaration, the lawyer interjected. "Mr. Croft, you have no right to dispose of Ms. Zhao's property." "Serena, go upstairs," Julian said coldly, but Lucy wasn't having it. She lunged forward, grabbed Serena by the hair, and delivered 2 sharp slaps. "This is for being a homewrecker." Then 2 more. "And this is for having me tied up and sent to the police." Before she could land another, Julian pushed her away. "Julian," Lucy sneered, "do you even know what marital property is? Go ask anyone on the street what they call a man who openly uses his family's assets to keep another woman, and still claims he's innocent. You're more disgusting than a man who just admits he's cheating." Her words set Julian off. "Serena is sick. I'm just helping her." "Lucy, you're an outsider. You don't know the situation. So shut your mouth." He was always like this. His favoritism was so obvious, yet he believed he was a paragon of virtue. Lucy looked at him as if he were something she'd scraped off her shoe. "Lucy," I said coldly, "since we're smashing things, let's be thorough. It's on me." The men, clearly professionals, went to work with renewed vigor. "Arya, that's enough," Julian shouted. Seeing I wasn't backing down, he finally relented. "Okay, I was wrong not to discuss this with you. I'll find another place for Serena tomorrow. Just make these people leave." I shook off his hand. "Lucy, call the police." With that, I turned to leave. Seeing my resolve, Julian was stunned. "Arya, wait." He chased after me, grabbing my arm while calling his assistant to come help Serena move. "Let's go home together." I was too weak to fight him off. Lucy rushed over and shoved him hard. Unprepared, he stumbled and fell onto a pile of shattered porcelain, his palm landing on a sharp shard. Blood gushed from the wound. "Serves you right," Lucy scoffed. "Julian, are you okay?" Serena cried, rushing to his side, but Julian was looking at me, searching my eyes for a hint of pity. All he found was scorn. "Serena is moving. Shouldn't you be helping her? You've abandoned me for other people more times than I can count. Don't act like leaving with me now makes up for anything." "That's not what I meant," he stammered, at a loss for words. When he couldn't find the reaction he wanted from me, he looked down at his bleeding hand, then back at me, his eyes almost pleading. "I'm hurt. Why don't you care?" The old me would have been crying, terrified. After cutting ties with my parents, he had become my only source of security. I would have shielded him from every storm. But now, I stood there calmly, thinking the crimson red suited him. "Whatever you meant, I'm not interested," I said. "Sign the paper soon. It'll be one less obstacle to you giving another woman a home." I shot Serena a disdainful look and walked away. "Let the trash take care of itself." "Arya, I'm not divorcing you," he roared from behind me, his voice raw. "You don't get to make that decision." The words sounded like they were torn from his very soul, dripping with blood and shattered love. In a movie, it might have been tragic. In reality, it was just pathetic. Lucy stayed behind to handle the aftermath, giving me space to breathe. Back home, I printed a new divorce agreement, added a small gift inside, and left it in his study. Then I dragged my suitcase out the door. Goodbye to my 10 years. The drama didn't end with my departure. The news of Julian's affair was a top trending topic for days. When we were starting out, the industry had called us a power couple. We were simple then. Julian would tie my shoes in public, so when Lucy posted the videos of him abandoning me at both weddings, the public outrage was swift and merciless. Employees from his company came forward with more stories. The walls were closing in. I don't know if Serena's heart condition was real before, but it certainly was now. Her social media was flooded with hate. She even publicly begged Julian to marry her, but he hid like a coward. Lucy kept up the pressure. With the constant scandals, investors began to pull out. The company's stock plummeted. The board was in an uproar. The company was on the verge of a major transition that relied heavily on investor funds. But now, the investors were willing to breach their contracts to withdraw, pushing the company to the brink of collapse. I learned all this 2 months later, while I was recovering abroad. I knew the company's true value and that the investors had faith in it. I hadn't expected them to actually pull out. Lucy had gone nuclear, but it was no longer my problem. Lucy told me that when Julian came home and found the divorce papers, along with the ultrasound and the report from my abortion, he went mad trying to find me. He contacted everyone we knew, only to be met with scorn. Everyone told him he was an idiot for letting the one person who truly loved him go, but he persisted. He even went to my late grandmother's home. In all our years of marriage, he had never once offered to visit my family. Back then, I was secretly pleased, as it meant I didn't have to explain my family situation. Now, I wondered, was that normal? He had always looked down on me, hadn't he? An unloved girl from the countryside wasn't worthy of his love. After much searching, he finally learned that my family was in business abroad. The only reason they had been distant was because I had defied them, for his sake, breaking their hearts. The truth was, my parents had softened long ago. I had wanted to take Julian to meet them many times, but he would always scoff. Your parents didn't even come to our wedding. Why would I go see them? I don't have time for that. When he finally had time, Serena needed him. He dragged his feet on signing the papers, perhaps believing that as long as we were married, I would come back. A divorce like ours, where we built a company together, was complicated. He probably thought I wouldn't be able to prove his infidelity, and would have to split everything down the middle. So, I filed for divorce. He sent messages through intermediaries, saying he wouldn't cooperate unless I appeared in person. Not wanting a protracted battle, I went back. On the day of the hearing, the once immaculate man was a wreck, his hair unkempt, his eyes bloodshot. He rushed toward me, his hand hovering, afraid to touch. Did it hurt? He choked out. That day, the day I saw you at the hospital, I looked at him like he was a fool. A little. It hurt for a while, but then, I felt wonderfully refreshed. Like our marriage, a grain of sand that had irritated me for years. I had tried to remove it so many times, but failed, so I chose the permanent solution. I threw the marriage away. Wasn't that what he wanted, too? My words made him flinch. He stared at me for a long time. You've lost weight. I paused. The man I once thought I couldn't live without was standing before me, expressing concern, and I felt nothing. No love, no hate, just peace. I smiled. No, I've gained a few pounds. He stared at my smile, a look of dawning horror on his face. He was finally realizing that I truly no longer loved him. His voice broke. I thought you were the one person in this world who would never leave me, so I took you for granted. When I found out you had terminated our child, a child we tried so hard for, I was filled with so much hate. But then I remembered how much you loved children, how much you went through to conceive, and I knew I had no right to blame you. I know you're still angry with me. I've been punished. Now that you're back, please don't leave again. Okay, the hearing is about to start, was my only reply. I walked into the courthouse, but he never followed. He ran away. I had expected him to be difficult, but not this pathetic. I left everything to my lawyer and flew out that same day. I started getting involved in my family's business and, thanks to my past experience, I quickly found my footing. I heard Julian's company survived. I was pleased. It meant my share of the assets would be larger. In my busy new life, I would occasionally see news of his antics. He knew it was hard to contact me, so he used every media interview to send me a message. Arya, if you come back, I'll always be here. Arya, I'm trying so hard to get closer to you. Please, just look at me one more time. Arya. The world is so big, why can't I find you? If you see this, please contact me. His public displays of devotion, contrasted with Serena's disgrace, slowly began to rehabilitate his image. The court even suggested that our marriage hadn't irretrievably broken down, so we let it drag on. It was no longer worth a single frown. A year passed. I had almost forgotten I was still technically married. When my lawyer finally called, the divorce was finalized. I felt nothing special, just transferred a handsome fee to my lawyer. I was officially single again. I saw Julian again when I returned to the country, for my university's centennial celebration. I was giving a speech on stage, and he was sitting in the front row, his gaze a burning spotlight fixed on me. He looked so much older that I almost mistook him for an alumnus from a much earlier class. When I said, "I don't regret my decision not to go abroad as an exchange student," a flicker of light appeared in his empty eyes, as if he was waiting for me to say more. I continued, "In my years abroad, I've been exposed to different cultures and educational systems, and I often felt a sense of disconnect. There is no right or wrong in culture. I simply felt that, back then, there was a path that was more suited to me, which is why I didn't choose to leave. You have to finish the degree you chose, even if you have to cry your way through it." The audience laughed. Finally, I concluded, a piece of advice from a senior: when you find yourself at a crossroads, listen to the true voice of your heart. After the applause, he cornered me in the hallway. "You're lying," he said, his voice firm and desperate. "You gave up the scholarship for me." I looked at him, not bothering to argue. At first, I thought so, but later, I realized I just didn't like my parents controlling my life. "You were just a convenient excuse, caught up in my little rebellion. I don't believe you." He shook his head frantically. "I don't believe you would come back to the country for some stupid speech. If there wasn't someone here you cared about, whether you believe me or not has nothing to do with me. Mr. Croft, I'd rather not call security. Please have some self-respect." "No, don't call me Mr. Croft," he pleaded, his face a mask of pain. "Do you know, when I found out you were the one secretly funding my company all those years, it felt like my heart was being ripped open. To think that you abandoned your own family for me, that you were all alone with me, and I was busy caring for another woman. I felt like I wasn't even human. If it weren't for the antidepressants, for the hope of seeing you again, I wouldn't have made it this far. I forced myself to hold on because I couldn't bear to watch the company we built together fail. It was our child. We couldn't lose another child. Arya, it doesn't matter that we're divorced. I can start over. I can pursue you, just like you pursued me." He pulled a diamond ring from his pocket. "Arya, I owe you a proposal. I'm giving it to you now. Marry me." I just shook my head at his pathetic, dramatic display. "You still don't get it. I chose you out of rebellion. I clung to you because the price of that choice was too high, and when I finally realized it was all for nothing, I let you go." In that entire process, there was purpose, there was resentment, but there was never any love, because there was no love. Looking at you now is like looking at a stranger. Do you understand? Whether my words were true or false no longer mattered, but the man clutched his head, a look of utter devastation on his face. Then, like a madman, he started banging his head against the wall. "Impossible," he chanted. "You loved me. You said all your designs were filled with your love for me." The commotion drew a crowd. Soon, people were pulling him away. I didn't spare him a second glance. I walked away. I heard later that Julian had done serious damage to his head that day. He would spend the rest of his life in a psychiatric hospital, and my brilliant life was just beginning.